Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. Today we're going to be talking about something extra special. We're going to be talking about Pokemon legendaries as legendary creatures in Magic. We've only done one rep from each generation with the exception of Gen 1, because come on, Gen 1's cool. So, without further ado, let's get right into it, shall we? First up, we have Mewtwo, the Ultimate Creation. For 2, blue, black, red, you get a legendary creature, Cat Mutant. Flying, when Mewtwo enters the battlefield, destroy all humans. Non-human creatures in your hand have Mutate X, where X is their mana value. Whenever you mutate, draw a card. This ability only triggers once each turn, 4/4. Mewtwo's massive hatred of humans naturally would make him sweep all humans when he comes in. He's not a fan. And, he's all about mutating and changing things and trying to be the perfect Pokemon. So naturally, he would let everything else get a chance to mutate. Mewtwo's very friendly just to other Pokemon. Anyway, I find this design to be nice and clean, not overpowered at all, and being able to give your entire, list of creatures the ability to mutate means that they'll be able to craft your own wacky monster without the limitations of, God knows how few mutate cards there are, especially that are actually playable. Next up we have Mew, Playful Prankster. For 2, blue-green, you get a 0/0 legendary creature, Cat. Mew enters the battlefield as a copy of a creature, except it enters with the flying counter and has pay 2, blue-green, exile Mew, then return to the battlefield at the beginning of the next end step. Mew is known for their ability to transform, and of course, fly. So, Mew can enter the battlefield as any creature, yours, theirs, doesn't matter. If they go to remove Mew, you can pay 4 mana to make Mew vanish and return. If it's a board wipe or something, and the creature that Mew was previously copying is not there, well, Mew has to be something else. There is, however, a big downside, because if Mew has nothing to copy, it just instantly dies. If you make Mew blink away, and then they board wipe everything else, Mew comes back and there's nothing there, well, that's counterplay, baby! Next up we have Ho-Oh, Great Reviver. For 3, white-red, you get a legendary creature, Phoenix, 3/3. When Ho-Oh enters the battlefield, if you control no dog creatures, return up to 3 target creatures with mana value 2 or less from the graveyard to the battlefield. They're dogs in addition to their other types. This is symbolic of the lore of Ho-Oh, that when it comes, it revives its 3 faithful hounds. Entei, Suicune, and the lightning one. Anyway, you can only have 3 dogs under Ho-Oh's command, so naturally, you can't have any dogs when she comes out. This is great because you can reanimate small utility creatures and then give them the doggy type, if that matters for any sort of tribal shenanigans. But of course, if you wind up getting board wiped, you can simply replay Ho-Oh and grab those same 3 creatures, or mix and match and grab, new ones. Very flavorful, in my opinion. Rayquaza, Fury Queller. For 1, blue-red, legendary creature, Dragon. Flying, trample, 4/4. Cast Rayquaza only if there are 2 other creatures on the battlefield. When Rayquaza enters a battlefield, choose 2 target creatures. Those creatures can't attack or block as long as Rayquaza is on the battlefield. When either of the chosen creatures leave the battlefield, return Rayquaza to its owner's hand. In the lore, Rayquaza comes down to stop, Groudon, Kyogre from attacking each other. So this is symbolic of him coming down and saying, "You two, stop fighting." Now, he is a 3-mana 4/4 flying trample, which is really good, but the downside here is that If either of those creatures that he chose leave the battlefield in any way, he goes back to his hand, ready to stop another fight, should it happen. Next up we have Arceus, God of All. For Rainbow, you get a 5/5 legendary creature avatar God. Creation X. X can't be 0. Create a 0/0 beast token with X +1/+1 counters on it, then give that creature 2 counters at random from among Flying, Death Touch, Lifelink, First Strike, Vigilance, or Trample, as long as X was 5 or greater. Arceus is indestructible as long as you control 2 creature tokens with power 5 or greater. So the design here is that Arceus is the creation of all life. So you can naturally pay mana to make life. And then those creatures will get nothing. They'll get no counters. Unless X is 5 or greater, then they get 2 at random from among the pool. Because he can create life, but he can't exactly control every finite detail of it. And if he has 2 big tokens, 5 or greater, then he becomes indestructible because he has his 2 right-hand mons, just like in the game. Next up we have Zekrom Fusion Conduit. For 1 white, black, red, green. Legendary creature Dragon 4/4 with Mutate for white, black, red, green. Flying, Trample, Haste, Menace, Vigilance. Whenever you cast a creature, you may return this creature to its owner's hand. So for those of you that don't know, Zekrom is a half of a fusion. So he fuses with Reshiram, and they become a big spooky monster. So Zekrom is fusing to another creature and gaining all of its crazy stat line of Flying, Trample, Haste, Menace, Vigilance, all these crazy keywords. And if you cast another creature, Zekrom is ready and excited to fuse onto a different thing. So you can bounce it and the original creature that you fused onto it back to your hand. A great way to evade things. And also, given that he has haste, he can immediately drop down and start bashing skulls yet again. Evital, the Dread Sky. For 3 black, red, green, you get a 5/5 Flying Death Touch Bird God. When Evital dies, exile it and destroy each other creature on the battlefield, then put a life counter on it for each creature that died this way. Whenever a creature dies while Evital is in exile, put a life counter on it. You may cast Evital from exile as long as it has 15 or more life counters on it. So again, for lore standpoint, when Evital dies, it kills all life on Earth. Crazy, look it up yourself on the Pokedex. Anyway, when this thing dies, it takes everything with it, and it gets a life counter for each and every one that dies this way. It goes into exile, gets the counters, and then anything that dies later while it's in exile will give it more life counters. And then if it has 15 or more, you can simply just cast it right back out. It's not free, you do have to pay for it, it's not instant speed effect, you still have to do it on your own turn unless it has flash, but it is a repeatable board wipe as long as you are constantly hitting, 15 plus creatures with it, which is not going to be very consistent, but it's always good to avoid command attacks, I'll admit this one's a little risky. Ultra Necrozma Life Entangler. For 3 white, blue, black, you get a 6/6 Avatar God. Ultra Necrozma has all abilities of all other commander creatures on the battlefield or in command zones. Commanders your opponents control can't attack, block, or activate abilities. So effectively, this creature has all of the abilities of all of your opponent's commanders combined. All the good, all the bad. And when he's out, he is stopping everyone else from doing something because he is assimilating them. So naturally, this guy is very complicated to build around, because every single game you play will be wildly different, because this guy will be a fusion of Prosper, a fusion of Rocco, a fusion of Daryl. You know, he's all these things smushed together, which makes it hard to build, because you're not going to be a deck that's building around that specific commander, so you just have to utilize his abilities to the best of your advantage with, you know, hoping that your deck synergizes with all the wacky stuff. This also has downsides, like let's say their commander is Phage, for instance. Well, good luck, because if you play your commander, you lose. So, I'll admit, of all the ones, this is the riskiest one, but I thought it was a unique design space. Next up, we have a two-parter, Zacian, Bearer of the Blade. For white-green, you get a 2/2 Ward 1 at the beginning of combat on your turn. If Zacian is equipped, transform it. It transforms into Zacian, Bearer of the Blade, Ward 2, 3/3. When Zacian, Bearer of the Blade attacks, create a copy of up to one equipment attached to it, and attach that copy to Zacian, then sacrifice it at the end of combat. For those of you that don't know, Zacian is just a harmless, kind of weak puppy until he gets his legendary sword. Then when he's equipped with it, he does extreme amounts of damage. So when you attack, let's say you put a Colossus Hammer on him, he creates a copy of the Colossus Hammer, slaps it on himself, hits for plus 20 in that instance, and then sacrifices the new Colossus Hammer. So it's just in there, does his thing, poof, gone. Of course, that's an extreme example, but it is a very powerful one. And finally, I couldn't choose between these two, so we have Miraidon and Koraidon. For 2 blue, red, green, a legendary creature, dinosaur, robot. When Miraidon and Koraidon enter the battlefield or at the beginning of your upkeep, each opponent chooses past or future. For each past, return a card at random from your graveyard to your hand. For each future, draw a card. The red-blue encapsulates future, and the green-red encapsulates the past. Now, because your opponents get the choice here, that means that they're effectively choosing which version or side to choose from, past or future, and this thing can draw you cards, and if you have an empty graveyard, it can draw you nothing. And, classic past has no real, concise control, so the card they return is completely at random. It will also be busted otherwise. So I think this commander would be a fantastic, just generic value engine, and there's a lot you can do with it. That's it. That is my list of 10 super cool, unique, custom Pokemon cards that I designed. Let me know if you would play any of them as a commander, if you think any of them are too weak, too strong. I'm happy to discuss it in the comments down below, and you have a good day.